I have a theory, and I don't know. I don't think I've stolen this from anyone. I think, but other people may have reached the same conclusion. I believe actually that, and maybe this is extreme of me, but I actually don't think that the word gender has any useful meaning. I feel like when people say gender, if they're not using it as a synonym for sex, male or female, and they separate those, then what I believe they mean, what they actually mean when they say gender, either it boils down to one of two things: either uh, a sexuality, like a sexual proclivity or preference, or two, a personality trait. And I've challenged people to this on X before, and I again, like, I same as you, I don't really get a clean answer to it or a concise answer to it, but I would challenge anyone, maybe anyone listening who disagrees with me on this. If you can describe your gender that isn't that doesn't boil down to just either a personality trait or a sexual proclivity, I would be very interested to know, because that's all that I hear about it. When somebody says they're, usually what they're referring to, like, say that they're you know, maybe agender, well, probably that means if you're a woman, maybe you're a little bit bisexual and maybe you present a little bit more androgynous. It may be the same for a man too. Agender is just one that came to mind, but there's no doubt countless examples. But that's my theory. I'm sticking to it until proven otherwise.
Well, if there's a word that's commonly used in our society and it interacts with the way people live their lives, we would want a clear definition of that word. We want to make sure that we all know what it means and we're all using it in the same ways. And if gender is sometimes used for sex and then sometimes used for just describing how people feel based on traits or personality, then it doesn't really describe the usefulness of that word is it's useless except for people's feelings about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if somebody says, well, I identify as female, great. They just told us that they maybe act or feel a little bit more feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does that mean? Like, how do we navigate? Do we treat them differently now just because
Mm-hmm.
they have a few more feminine traits? Like, or are we at this point where differences in some of these big five personality traits don't really matter as much on a day-to-day basis? Like,
Yeah.
you'll naturally find people who maybe in like a heterosexual relationship, the high assertiveness in a male in males is like still a desirable trait from
Mm.
women when they're dating like men in a relationship. They still look for these things. So in those cases, these personality traits, maybe if they fit these traditional kind of averages across the, like when we sample our population, like it maybe it's more stable in those circumstances. But on the fringes, you'll always have tomboys and you always have like,
Feminine men, and yeah.
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 And there's, we even look at like the artist community, like there's all
Mm.
kinds of misfits,
Yeah.
personality, like, well, and that's where you get
We're
all
both
these
members of
wonders.
that
And yeah,
misfit artist community, so we know it's absolutely true. But and the point of it is too that, like, I hate that, we have to do this, because if anyone knows us in real life, they know that we're not judgmental people. We're not, we don't go out seeking to, be rude to people or disrespectful or mean or anything like that. So I hate that I have to say it, but what this ultimately comes down to is, and I know you would agree, don't believe that there's any right or wrong way to be a boy or a girl or a man or a woman. There's just the way that you are. And that's fine, and you should be able to have a community that you can, you know, have friends and relationships in, and be accepted for exactly who you are. I think that actually that's much less sexist and divisive and exclusionary. I think that's a word. Than being the other way, where if you have to take it back to the schools, if you have an activist teacher who looks at a little boy who maybe is more interested in playing with the stereotypically girls' toys, or a little girl who's more interested in playing, sports or something more stereotypically boyish or masculine, to suggest that those little boys or girls are exhibiting signs of transgenderism, or are truly the opposite sex or whatever, that seems to me to be very regressive and sexist, and not accepting of the differences in personality that everyone has.